many ancestral healing practitioners, particularly with myself, when I do sessions, it involves prayer. Again, I'm an ordained minister, and it doesn't clash with that. Meditation, and these practices can help individuals connect with their ancestors and help them to gain guidance and support. And found my way into a seminary where I spent a couple of years and emerged as a reverend. But I felt there was still a missing link. I wasn't sure what it was till I had another spiritual visit and was introduced to traditional Yoruba religion, which filled in the gaps and made perfect sense to me. Partly because it's already in my DNA. A light was switched on, and that was my journey to the steps of ancestral healing. Indigenous tribes like Native America, Australian Aboriginal culture, Chinese traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Celtic traditions in Latin America. It's all over the world and is practiced with pride. But the Africans, where this thing actually started, find it very difficult, and we need to ask the questions, why are we afraid of ourselves in that way?
Hi, I'm Obehi, the author of the storytelling series for small businesses and content creators. In Obehi Podcast, we talk about the power of your story, your narrative, and why you should own your voice. Whether you are a small business owner, a content entrepreneur, or you simply want to build your influence, storytelling is probably going to be your best instrument to connect with your audience. So join the awakened few who are owning their voices. Now let's get started with today's episode.
Thank you so much, Obehi, the chair lady. I like that. Well, greetings. Good day to you all. Alafia. Thank you, Obehi, for inviting me to speak on your audio platform. I'm honored and full of gratitude. My name is Gloria Tinu Ggunbadejo. I'm an ancestral healing coach. I'm also an ordained minister, a life and health coach, a writer. I also work with Diabetes UK, which is the largest diabetes charity in the UK, and I'm a mental health advocate. I'm here to share with you what I know for sure about ancestral healing. But before I do that, can I ask your permission to share with you a part of my story? Obehi always says we all have a story to tell. I'm a Nigerian and from the Yoruba culture. I was raised by two marvelous human beings. My mother was an educator and wore 50 other hats. Something about the apple not falling far from the tree comes to mind with that. My father was an industrialist, so we traveled a bit. I also have two brothers and a sister, and part of our education came from experiencing the world. I was raised as a Christian. There was no dogma. It was more about knowing right from wrong and being kind to others and volunteering your time and your gifts. My lifelong work has been around doing just that, looking after people's well-being and volunteering my time and my gifts. I was very close to my family, and being the only daughter and the last born, I made it work for me in many ways. I was kind of spoiled. I also thought my family would be with me forever. I was wrong. One day, we got a message that my mother had unexpectedly passed away. I was 18 and away at college. My father died a few years after. My brothers, my sister, my uncles, my aunties. It seemed like everybody was dead and I was the only person left. So I waited for my turn, but it didn't come. Fast forward to a couple of decades later, following some health challenges, I had my own personal road to Damascus experience and found my way into a seminary where I spent a couple of years and emerged as a reverend. but I felt there was still a missing link. I wasn't sure what it was till I had another spiritual visit and was introduced to traditional Yoruba religion, which filled in the gaps and made perfect sense to me. Partly because it's already in my DNA, a light was switched on, and that was my journey to the steps of ancestral healing. So, what do I do? What is ancestral healing? This will come out more as we talk, but the importance of it is an important tool for personal growth, for healing intergenerational wounds, honoring cultural traditions, and it can help you to gain a deeper understanding of yourself, your family history, leading to greater peace and well-being. It's an essential part of traditional healing practices in many cultures and is gaining increasing attention as we live in the times that we are today. That's just a brief description of what ancestral healing is. There'll be lots more that I will tell you about it as we continue this conversation. Over to you, Obehi.
Thank you so much, Gloria. I can already feel the energy as we are moving into the conversation. And I want to believe that in the African diaspora specifically, we need to talk about this conversation often. You might ask why? Why? Because of the peculiarity of our history, where we are coming from, and the circumstances surrounding also our experience in where we live. In that, like I was just saying before, by talking of the ancestors, we are talking of who have been here before us. What have they done? And how can we benefit from the knowledge that they left behind? One time, I was telling my guest, just a kind of a reflection in Obehi Podcast, that if we abandon our ancestors, by extension, abandon our culture, our way of life, our history, and our tradition as a people, and we want to have peace, it is going to be impossible, because we are going to find our peace, we are going to find our way in this world through the history that have been laid down through generations upon generations. So it's going to be very important for us that from time to time, we touch some of this argument that for some people might be difficult to comprehend. How can you be talking about ancestors? Some people will say, well, we need to talk about it because we are talking about our history. We're talking about where we are coming from. We're talking about the blood that is running in our vein. Now, why don't we look at it like this, dear Gloria? What would you say about maybe the specific practices or rituals that are commonly evolved in ancestral healing? How do they contribute to the healing process? Help us understand that.
Thank you, Obehi. And as I was telling you earlier, each question that you ask me can take 2 hours for me to answer, but I'll try to compress it and see if I can give as much information within a short time. So, ancestral healing involves honoring and respecting one's ancestors. Like, it can include creating what is called in the profession an ancestral altar in the home, where you may offer food, prayer, and other items to your ancestors. And I know for some people that might sound, a bit weird. And even for others, it may include visiting the graves of their ancestors. Again, for some people, this may sound macabre and seeming and frightening based on the myths and negative views that we've grown up with. It's useful to remember that in traditional places of worship, such as churches, mosques, temples, that burning candles, drinking wine, offering food are all rituals. Breaking bread, they're used to honor spirit and God. This is no different. It's just some of the very negative connotations that have been put on it. Many ancestral healing practitioners, particularly with myself, when I do sessions, it involves prayer. Again, I'm an ordained minister, and it doesn't clash with that. Meditation, and these practices can help individuals connect with their ancestors and help them to gain guidance and support. So these are some of the specific rituals that are carried out. Now, in some traditions, such as shamanic journeys, and other kinds of traditions, they use spirit realm to communicate with ancestors. Again, I know for many people from particular cultures, that again suddenly might conjure up some weird, strange, dark idea. Again, I can say that because I know I grew up, with that idea that anything to do with ancestors, you need to run a mile. It's something that is connecting with evil spirits. Again, I hate to say it, some of these myths and ideas were brought in when Christianity was brought to us, because the whole idea was that we needed to turn away from all our traditional ways in order to accept this new religion. I'm not here to cast aspersion on any religion, but I'm just giving some facts. Again, you can look this up yourself. Many ancestral healing practices involve releasing negative feelings or thoughts, and the rituals that help individuals let go of these negative energies and patterns include some of the ones that I've just mentioned now, prayer, all the things I just mentioned earlier. These are symbolic rituals, and they can include burning herbs, cutting cords of, you can do a cord and then you cut it, as a symbol of cutting off away from negative thoughts and feelings. And some of these initiation rites of passage and ceremonies, they're all, you have to be able to think creatively, because I think one of the problems we have now is that we're so conditioned and conformed to doing very specific things and not able to think out of the box, so to speak. And it's not so much even thinking out of the box for many of us who come from very strong, rich cultures and traditions. These things have already been around for centuries, for so long before the new religions came about. So it's reconnecting to those systems, those ways of healing that our wonderful healed ancestors have engaged in, that serve them well. And all these things run through our DNA. They're already within us. That's why I said, like, for myself, something I hadn't even thought about throughout my life, when I finally made that connection, it was like a light bulb. A light was switched on. And okay, I'll stop there. I don't want to just keep talking at you.
Anyway, we actually enjoy it listening to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. All right. Now, I have a curiosity. You see, in the beginning, I said that how I started to write this 5-part book series, the storytelling series for content creation and small businesses, which of course you can find on Amazon. The 5 books are available there. It was based on the research that I carried out here in Verona, which is in the northern part of Italy. So at a point, I have to also talk to some other Africans who might not necessarily be here. And that led me to create a documentary in 2015, which was also screened at the festival of Pan-African Festival in Torino. So while doing that documentary, at that time, 2015, or before then, or within that period, the issue of Boko Haram was very common in Nigeria. And at the point, in fact, the thesis of the documentary, which I titled Pan-Africanism, Testing Idea on Reality, was to put the beautiful idea of Pan-Africanism and what is happening today in Africa, what is happening on the ground, to compare it to see if it can actually square up. Of course, to do this, I wanted to talk about what is happening to us. Why are we doing what we are doing in Africa today? So then, I was interviewing a writer, an African writer. Okay, it's also a medical doctor, but it's also a writer here in Italy, about certain things related to religion. And then he was telling me something that I found interesting, because of course I will come back to that just now, how I get to this point, that in voodoo religion, for example, which is in Benin, because he is coming from Benin Republic, it's not strange for somebody to be a voodoo practitioner and also be a Christian. In essence, he was telling me that in a typical African religion, it is not Is not contradicting that you believe in this and you also believe in another thing. And this I will later understand deeply, thinking back to where I'm coming from. I come from Urumi. When I was growing up, and my father was still there. We were going to church, and my father wasn't going to church, but he never had any problem with us going to the church. I don't know if you get what I'm trying to say here now. Like, maybe, for example, if you are a Christian, would you allow your child to practice another religion that is not yours? Maybe in the morning, you wake up, you say, Daddy, I'm going to this place instead of following you to worship in your church. If you are a Muslim, an African Muslim, would you do that? The answer is in most of the cases is no. So I'm trying to understand here. If you want to say anything more about that idea, yeah, please go.
Oh, thank you, Obehi. I mean, African cultures and regions have different belief systems. I mean, in my family, like I said, we're raised Christian, but some of my relatives married Muslims, and our prayers, we pray in different ways, but we all believe that we're praying to one God. And there are different belief systems and cosmologies that influence their ancestral healing practices. For instance, some cultures believe in reincarnation, while others believe in the continuity of the spirit after death. For example, the Yorubas believe as a person dies, they take their place as an ancestor, and when a child is born, the ancestor returns. That's why with and there's continuity, and this is reflected in the names like Babatunde, Yabode, which means father come back, mother come back. So even in the names, there's an understanding that there is some level of continuity there, that the ancestors, they go and then they come back in different form. And the interesting thing I think is really beautiful. They say when a baby is born, it has had a conversation with an ancestor, and they have passed each other as one is coming, the other is going, one is coming, and that's why when a child is born, we believe that that child has come with such wisdom and knowledge and information that it can't tell us as a baby, but it has been given that through the ancestors. And different cultures have unique rituals and ceremonies to connect with their ancestors. Some cultures, again, like the Yorubas, they have divination methods, such as reading cowrie shells, and others they do different types of healing practices. I mean, almost all African cultures consider ancestor veneration or honoring as an essential and widespread aspect of ancestral healing practices.
Thank you so much for that. Thanks for all of you that are joining in. I just see Dr. Mansha. Thank you for coming here. At the point, we are going to ask some of you that are there in the audience to maybe express what you feel about the conversation, because
Yes,
we
please.
want to also hear from you. All right. Now, Gloria, I want you to tell me something about this. Why is there a negative connotation to this traditional belief or belief system in Africa, talking about ancestors, for example? Because, like, where I'm coming from, which is Esa, I repeat again, from the south of Nigeria, the term ancestors is um, almost automatically seen as negative. Speaking of today, but it has not always been like this. Why? How did we get to this point?
Well, the easy, simple answer would be to say colonization. But okay, that opens up a whole new conversation. And I would love to hear what other people might think. I mean, again, like I'm a good poster child to show that the two things can live together. I am a reverend. I'm an ordained minister, and I'm also an ancestral healing practitioner. But I've received a lot of hostility and resistance from my wonderful Christian brothers and sisters, and I've initially I was very disturbed by it because I thought, what is it that you're upset about? And I asked them, I would say, okay, if you're able to just suspend all of the myths, and you may call whatever you consider them, if you can just suspend it for 1 minute, when you think of ancestors, like you were saying in the beginning, Obehi, what does it mean to you? Your uncle, your auntie, your brother, your sister who has passed, you realize those are your ancestors. So make it make sense to me that you're saying honoring those people who you mention in a day-to-day basis. Most of the people in conversations will make reference to their grandma, to their auntie. So I said, you're honoring them. So if you just don't realize that's what you're doing. So are you telling me now that to honor those people is something bad? Is something to be afraid of? Who told you that? Who taught you that? And again, if you trace it back, when Christianity came to us, part of the way of making Christianity stick was to make Africans turn their backs on their own traditional ways, which again, we see where that has taken us. I don't want to get political here, but these are just some of the answers to that question. And I think it's fair. But then again, if one is able to, like I said, to suspend some of all those things that we were socialized into believing, and just think of it in a more intellectual way, in a way that makes sense, it might open up the minds a bit. I would love to hear what other people think about this.
All right, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. And soon we will hear some people, as some people already, some individual already ask you to join the room. But just before then, before I pass the microphone on there, I want us to remember, and like you were saying, that when we talk of ancestors, we are talking of those who were sharing life together some minutes ago. Just that now they have transitioned. They are no longer in the physical experience that we are living in. They are living in a different experience, so they are no longer with us. So we are honoring them in this sense. But it is not only us, Africa, that honor our ancestors. Every people in the world do the same. I think what happened is that the European told us that we can also honor ancestors, but we should honor their ancestors because their ancestors are the good one. Our are bad, so we should forget them. Now let me explain. I have been a member of the Roman Catholic Church for a very long time. In the Roman Catholic Church, there is what we refer to as saint. But what is saint? Saint are people who are dead, who you are now praying through them to reach God so that they can intervene for you. If that is not ancestor worshiping, then I don't know what we are talking about. Okay. So now, if we take it away from there, look at maybe, for example, in the political realm, or let's look at currency, for example. If you take a dollar bill or any other currency that you are using, whose image do you see there? These are dead people. But because we don't want to forget them, we put their name, their images there so that we use it all the time. We don't forget them. Because we don't live in vacuum. We live in experience. We want to make sure that we remember this. That is why we build monuments. That is why in the museum we make sure that their names are always there. But the difference is that we as Africans are told to forget our own because our own are evil. Because if you walk around in Africa, in African countries, I can speak of Nigeria, for example, because both of you and I are coming from Nigeria. How many monuments of our heroes do we see on the ground that are molded that you can see and go to the statue and really like reverend? Does it mean that our people are not holy? Even in the Catholic Church, very few people are regarded as holy of African descent. Even though they are Catholic, we practice the same thing, we worship the same God, we do it even according to them. But when they pray, we only pray through St. Michael, St. Gabriel, St. Anthony, St. Andrew. All these are people of European origin. They are qualified to be saint, but they are actually ancestors because they have been the father of somebody, but now they have transitioned. So we can pray through them. But why can't we also pray through our own?
It's something deeply internalized. And like I said, it's one of those conversations that can either bring people together or make, turn people away from you. And but these are conversations we need to have. We're living in a world today where, interestingly, when I started this work, the numbers of non-Black people who were knocking my door down, was just stunning. And again, I said, this is it again, that the people who have this innately, this is something that's been God given to us. We've turned away from it. And again, we're allowing the outsider to rush to come and get what they can from it. It's just, there's something quite disturbing about it. I mean, ancestral healing is a practice that can be found in so many cultures around the world, so many cultures, traditions, faiths, and it shows up in different ways. Sometimes not even in the ways that we think it is, just like what you've just described now, Obehi. I mean, that's really breaking it down. Ancestral healing, obviously, it's in the Yoruba tribe, indigenous tribes like Native America, Australian Aboriginal culture, Chinese traditions, Hinduism, Buddhism, Celtic traditions in Latin America. It's all over the world and it's practiced with pride. But the Africans, where this thing actually started, find it very difficult. And we need to ask the questions, why are we afraid of ourselves in that way? Where have we got this information? And it's so deeply rooted. I mean, I had a wonderful sister who we were in the church together, and she came to my home to visit. And I have my husband is a sculptor, so we have lots of sculptures in the home, beautiful sculptures, African sculptures in one section of the place. And then I had another section where I had paintings, beautiful paintings of different artists. And I watched her because I knew immediately. She looked where the sculptures were, and she immediately almost ran out of that room and went to sit where these paintings. And so I said, was there something wrong? She said, oh, no, it's okay, it's all right. But I knew what she was thinking, because I've heard it before. Oh, there's some evil spirit in the sculptures. But these sculptures have been stolen from us. I feel like I'm getting political. I wasn't going to go there. If you in the countries across the world, you find these sculptures in Christian homes, that have been stolen from us, but they're not afraid of them. So why are we afraid of ourselves? Anyway, I'll pause on that.
Thank you so much for that. I like the conversation. I like it. We are going to take it on. Anyway, now we have two beautiful people in the group in the room. They have something to tell us. All right. Now let's start with Dorothea. I think you were the first to jump on room. Please share something with us. We are here to listen to you.
Hello. Thank you. I am coming to you from the U.S. and my history is that my family was enslaved here. So I think that where there may be certain fears in Africa, there are some things that in an effort to retain, to latch onto that part of us, my ancestors kept some of the things. And one of the things that they did keep is ancestral healing, as I understand it from your discussions. So, for instance, we do believe, at least within my family, we do believe that our ancestors intercede for us. We believe that our ancestors have already prayed for our intentions before we were ever even born.
Yeah.
And we believe in staying prayed up is the phrase that my family uses.
Yeah.
So right now we're using that cash that my family and my ancestors have put in the bank for us. Yeah. And we need to make sure that we're praying for the next generations. And, we believe in things such as I have seen my ancestors and I feel my ancestors, and my mother passed when I was 14 and I'm decades older now. And sometimes I still hear her. For instance, if my alarm went down because the power went off, I hear my mother's voice waking me up. And I think the first time that happened, I actually literally fell out of bed because I was very disoriented when that happened. But those are the types of things that within my family we continue to bring forward and we pass on to our children as well. So I appreciate this discussion, and I thank you for bringing this to us, Obehi.
Thank you so much for that, Dorothea. You see, this is why we are here. We are here to connect. In fact, this series is, as you will see on the poster, is diaspora storytelling. We are really intentional about our story. We are going to heal ourselves by talking to ourselves. I remember, for example, a couple of months ago, I was interviewing a U.S. lecturer, a history lecturer. At the point, it's like she felt that maybe that some tears were going to run down from her eyes because we're talking about deep part of our history. I would really do this intentionally. That we need to heal ourselves. Then I said to her, I said, listen, if you want to cry here, let's cry. We are here together. You are my sister. I'm your brother. Let's talk. Let's talk about us. We need to look for a way to heal ourselves from what has happened to us. And the best way to do is to connect to our very root. Who are we? That is very important. We don't need, like Gloria was saying before, we don't need to look at something that represent us and we should be afraid of it. We should not. Now, just before I ask Celici to say something, I want to say that I live in Verona. In Verona, there is a museum called African Museum. One thing that might surprise you is that museum was actually built by missionaries, and the content of that museum are different elements from African culture and tradition and spirituality. And these are the same things that African people are running away from. They have thrown them away. Some of them, they have stolen it and just given it out to the European because they have been told that these things are evil. But on the surface, you don't question this mindset, this rationale. But if you manage to think, like reflect a little bit, you ask yourself, but if these things are evil, why do you take it to your home? And worst of all, you are Christians. Why do you take it to your home and build a place for it? It doesn't square up. Anyway, this is why we are here. Now, dear Montelici, I don't know if I pronounced the name correctly. Please pardon me. It's your time. Tell us something.
Hi, Obe. I hope you guys can hear me. I'm driving. My name is Mutidisi. So the L-I is pronounced D in my language.
Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you very much for this conversation. I'm trembling, feeling so overwhelmed, so blessed, So in 2021, I finally embraced and accepted myself for who I am. When I was still a student at the University of Cape Town, out of nowhere, I just started burping. And I thought that was, well, in fact, my whole family figured it must be food allergies and did all kinds of things to try and take away these burpings, but they just wouldn't go away. And then I just went on a journey of trying to understand what exactly is going on with me. And in 2009, I was told that I'm a healer. And my educated mindset, in fact, my Eurocentric mindset immediately rebuffed what I was told and thought, healers. So in my language, we say Ngaka tsa Sesotho, which is a traditional healer. A traditional healer is uneducated. It's dirty. Nobody likes them. They're ugly. And I'm nothing like that. And for 14 years, I rejected that part of myself until COVID hit. And so one of the things I did in the process was I learned Reiki healing, which is a Japanese form of healing. So in that Eurocentric mindset, exactly what you're saying, Reiki was much better than my own way of healing and understanding healing. And so I would then very informally do Reiki healing, because I was very ashamed of this whole part of me. And am I still audible? Yes. It was even exacerbated by the fact that when I would share with my friends to say, I had this dream, I saw this, then everybody would just say, oh no, you are overcome with the devil, and I was just filled with shame and hid it. COVID came, and the two clients that I secretly would see then said, what's going to happen now that we are in lockdown? How will we then do this? And I said, no, we can do distance healing. And that then began the process of now accepting me for me, and then having to go through the rituals that are needed in order to accept that I'm a traditional healer. But I'm not only, so as I was then growing into this and loving myself, I said, I'm not only a traditional healer, I'm a social anthropologist by training. I'm a consciousness coach, because these are things that I did to upskill myself and embrace, I guess, all skills that I know are within me. And so I ended up calling this process that I offer to my clients Journey to Wholeness, because I said, in 14 years, it has been my own journey to wholeness, to accept and embrace me for who I am. Because how do I facilitate conversations with my clients who've come for healing if I'm not healed? I need to talk from a healed perspective. And so one of the challenges that they would then pose is, would medical aid pay for this? Because I find these sessions so helpful. And I'm like, well, empirical evidence, I suppose, would be needed to support how I do what I do. And I don't know how to explain that when you come to me, I will be told that use this herb and mix it with this and that, it's going to heal. I don't know how to explain that. So I'm not even going to attempt going into the Western paradigm of saying, can medical aid pay for this or do this? I really am just walking this journey and learning. And one of the biggest things I've been asking is exactly this. Why is there so much shame? I don't even know where I took those perceptions of thinking that a healer is all those negatives that I used to have. But I'll keep it there for now. Thank you so much. Feeling so blessed. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. We appreciate you. We appreciate also what you're sharing with us. Where that is the point, in that the people who have educated us to hate ourselves are very good in what they are doing. And they like it when we cry. They like it when we are disoriented. They like it when we are confused, because that is how they benefit. That is how they make their money. Because at the end of the day, it's all about the money. They want to provide what we eat, give us the dressing that we have, tell us the medicine we should take. Now, let's take a moment to reflect. If we accept that our ancestors are evil, now everything about our ancestors is evil. So we don't need to study our medicine, because that is what our ancestors used to do. How can you be studying the medicine of evil people? But you see, this is really very stupid, in that you are a product of your ancestors. How can your ancestor be evil and you are not evil? There, they did something very trickish, is that they will wash you with the blood of the lamb. They wash you with their own blood, something that they have invented, and that make you clean. But guess where you get a little bit more trickish? Is that you will one day grow up, you will die, you will be buried, because we don't live very long. We live, let me be very abundant. Let's say we live 100, 120, 50 years. But 150 years is just like 2 days in our history as humanity. Now, after 150 years, because I'm overly exaggerating that years for you, another 150 years, you have become an ancestor. Now, guess what? You have also become an evil person, because you are saying by your tenet of looking at your ancestors that are evil, that they should also look at you as evil. Otherwise, how are they going to put you? How can they explain honoring you? So this is a trick. We as a people must look for a way to connect to our history. You see, I am writing a book now, a kind of a biography about my eldest brother, and therefore also a story about my people, where I'm coming from. At a point, I said, in my village, there is a bond between me and that piece of land. And what is this bond? My umbilical cord was buried in that land. So I cannot forget that land. I cannot forget the history of that land because I have a bond, an everlasting one. So we as a people must understand that there is somebody who is always trying to stand in the middle between where we are standing and the land. That is between us and the land where we are standing. So they want to take away our feet from the ground so that they can do whatever they like. Because if you don't have a direct connection between you and your source, you are gone. All right, now I want to throw another question to you, dear Gloria. How does ancestral healing differ across different African cultures and regions? And maybe what are some common threads that maybe connect these different practices? Help us with that.
So, like I said, there are common threads, and some of them, include specifically communicating with ancestors and the belief and the ability to communicate and seeking wisdom and guidance or healing. All the different traditional practices have some element of seeking wisdom, getting guidance, and getting some level of validation from our ancestors. The most ancestral healing practices involve ceremonies, rituals, or spiritual beliefs. There's appreciation for intergenerational knowledge, and most African cultures consider ancestral knowledge as vital and is often passed down from generation to generation. African ancestral practices emphasize the interconnectedness of all things and the importance of living in harmony with nature and the community, particularly the Yoruba African religion. Everything about it is balancing a person between heaven and the other realms. So, in other words, it's not that those religions that say you will get glory when you go to heaven. The African religion says there's a way to balance the glory which you can get here based on how you live, how you negotiate yourself in the world, how you treat other people, as well as receiving strength from the ancestors in the other realm. So it's always, making some level of connection so it will guide how you are in the world. And it's not, you have to live a particular way now and then you get the glory somewhere else. No, and it's again that thing about people saying that somebody else is responsible for their behavior. So, and that's one of the things that I have great issues with. I take issues with that. Yes, there's a higher being that we reach up to and we pray to and we ask for guidance, but you are responsible for how you behave. And, it's not that you give that over to somebody else and say, well, this happened because somebody else made it happen, or, that's a cop-out. And people, when you believe in that way of thinking, it exonerates you, or it allows you, in my belief, that it allows you to do things that you don't take responsibility for. And there's a lot of that out there right now.
Thank you for that. I can see that you don't want to mention the religious there, particularly the European religion. Anyway, I'll just throw something there. Then we'll move on.
I'll leave that to you, Obehi. I'm trying to talk to a wide range of people here. Give me a break.
Anyway, it's okay. It's okay. I see that you're also a reverend, but it's okay. Don't worry. I will speak on that. I like to. All right. What the Christianity have also done to us is that it creates innocence of us, so that we really do not take responsibility for what has happened to us. Maybe it's not Christianity in general, but the way that we have been brainwashed in Africa and among Africans, that is the situation. I was in a lecture here in Verona where the lecturer was a Cameroonian, and he was saying something important that maybe many Africans don't pay attention. He talked about the idea of infantilization of the African people, where we basically have to be like children. This is no accident at all. It has been done on purpose. Now, I don't want to expatiate on that, so I don't take away the direction of the conversation. But what I'm saying here is that when, for example, something happened, you look at what happened as maybe the forces of evil, they are responsible. What that literally means is that you are helpless. The only thing that you can do is to pray to God. And guess what? You are going to pray to a European God who is coming to resolve your problem. But it is wrong, because it means you are incapable of anything other than just kneeling down, closing your eyes. And I want us to pay attention to what Desmond Tutu said, that when you close your eyes, they take your land. Don't close your eyes. Open it wide. Because when you are closing your eyes, they are taking the land under your feet. Very soon you will fall into a hole. So let's take responsibility for what happened. Now, talking of responsibility, I have done 2 projects about this that I think I really love to mention. One is a documentary I was talking about before, which is the Pan-Africanism testing idea on reality. That was in 2015. The idea of that documentary was to ask fellow Africans, are we really innocent of what is happening in Africa today? Looking at, for example, the genocide in Rwanda, the war in Sierra Leone, even the civil war in Nigeria, for example. Have we taken the time to examine what is happening behind this war? Who are really the heroes of this war? What is really going on here? Whose game are we playing? Because until we take responsibility for that, we are not going anywhere. Now, another work that I did similar to this was in 2010. I wrote a book I titled Underdevelopment in Africa, My Hands Are Clean. By that I was saying, Africans, let's look at where our role is in what is happening to us. Because we cannot simply be innocent. Our responsibility cannot simply be to blame the other person. What of me? What have I done to free myself from this quagmire where I find myself? Because it is not the responsibility of the other person to free me. It is my responsibility to free myself. Because if it is the responsibility of the person who is chaining me to free me, then he will only free me when I am no longer useful. But what a life do I have if I cannot dictate where I want to go? And of course, pay the consequences for that. So I really want to thank you for that. When you talk of responsibility, I think it's very, very important. And of course, looking at maybe the African diaspora today, because that is our focus. Can you maybe share something? Of course, I'm talking again to you, Gloria. Of course, even the people that are there in the audience, those that are in the room, if you have something to ask to it, why not? You are welcome. Can you maybe share a personal experience that might highlight the transformative power of ancestral healing for individual or community? Anything you want to share with us there, starting with Gloria?
Okay. Thank you, Obehi. And thank you for your very spirited contribution there. Okay. Well, I'd like to encourage everyone to visit my website, gloriaggunbadejo.com, to read about people's personal transformative experiences and life-changing experiences who have had sessions with, who have done this work. I will talk a little bit about my personal experience, which I briefly shared with you, the genesis of it earlier when we started this podcast. I've lived pretty much decades of my life in perpetual fear because of the monumental loss in my large family. I came from a large African family. And to find everybody gone, there was, the murmurings typically that, well, maybe there's something dark and that, your family has been, something has been put on your family. And I grew up believing it. So I walked around with this sword of Damocles, or whatever they call that sword, hanging over my head, expecting it to drop any minute. Because it was like, if all these wonderful people have gone, who am I? But like I said, I passed the years of all these wonderful humans that had gone before me. I got to their age, I passed that age, and so I thought, okay, am I being kept here for something? Because I don't know what it is, but I'm afraid of the people who have gone. Death is something I grew up being afraid of. So I'm here alone. What am I meant to do? Yes, I was blessed. I had my family, my children, which of course brought a lot of succor into my life. But I still kept thinking, what am I here for? What is it? And if I'm just here to just be in perpetual fear all the time, what's the point? So as after, like I said before, when I became a minister and I still felt there was something missing, then I was introduced to this work. And from the minute I stepped into this work, and I actually allowed myself to make that connection, to ask for a connection, because our ancestors they're everywhere, but they require you to ask them into your life. Once I did that fear literally disappeared overnight. Because I've lived with insomnia all my life, because I'm always expecting. I'm very hypervigilant, always expecting something to happen. My children used to joke when they go to the restroom at night and they pass my bedroom and say, "What are you looking for, Mom, at 3 a.m.? Nothing is going to happen." And I would say, "I don't know, something isn't going to happen." It was the general joke around the family. But the minute I walked into this work, I have slept like a baby. I now have no more fear. I've welcomed my ancestors, and they have come into my life in a big way. And I was afraid to step into this work also for fear of what are people going to say. People from my part of the world, like I said, there was a lot of hostility. There are people who, quote unquote, canceled me, defriended me, or whatever they call that stuff. And so I was worried. I tiptoed. And again, when I embraced it wholeheartedly, like my sister said about her journey too, embracing her purpose. Once I did that, it was like the light that has shone on me, the glow. Sometimes I have to cover myself from it. And that's not exaggerating, but it's just a sense of complete validation, belonging. That foreboding has gone. I'm now in a stage of my life where I've lived longer than I will live. And as much as that may sound dramatic, unless I want to live to be some Methuselah age, I know my time is really limited. So I feel that this has been a gift that has been given to me, and is a reason why I've been given this gift. And is to receive, just like there's a lot of debris, a lot of intergenerational trauma, there are things that have passed down. There are lots of superpowers and gifts that are waiting for us to claim. But we have to open our minds to it. And it's not a far stretch, because it's already in our blood. There are people who are trying to learn how to do what we're doing, want to learn about all these things. We don't have to learn anything. We just have to open our minds, because it's there. We are the original people. And it's not about preaching any kind of separation and this. There are people who do that, and that's their job. That's what they're meant to do. But I'm just telling people to claim what is already yours, to free you up, so you can get what is already yours. You can get those powerful gifts that will bring joy into your life, that when you feel it, you know it, you walk a different way. I hear people who say, I'm always been a very joyful person, but I hear people say, since I started this work, I walk with a different gait. I look a particular way. And I said, well, does it offend you? I want to do a Maya Angelou poem. Are you worried about how I move? But no, they're just saying there's something about how I walk with a purpose. I walk as if I am somebody. I know who I am. I know whose blood runs through me. So just based on that, whatever I'm doing, that's in the forefront of my mind. That's how I move. That's how I think. And it allows me to make moves that I may have hesitated before because of some of all those narratives that I've been going through on my mind. So that's what was the question you asked me, Obehi? I
No,
just
no.
just going on a tangent.
No. You
I
did
just
perfectly
caught
well.
myself there for a minute.
No. You answered it. You answered it correctly.
Okay,
It it was actually how to highlight the transformative power of ancestral healing for
okay.
individual and community, and you did perfectly well there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that,
Okay.
and I also thank all of you that have joined us. Jerome, LVD. Anyway, I don't know what that means, but of course you will come to the stage to talk about it. Moise, Ben, Dr. Eileen, you are all welcome. You are welcome there. You are welcome. Lois, Maria, Mike, you are all welcome. I welcome you all to this conversation. We are talking about the importance of ancestral healing to African diaspora. And of course, we are talking about us, our experiences as a people, and how we can leverage the collective knowledge of our ancestors, those who have been before us. And of course, we're also taking the time to demystify the idea that our ancestors are evil. That would completely reject because we know who we are. And like Gloria was saying before, know who you are. You will walk upright. You don't need to be afraid. Don't need to be afraid at all because you know who you are. Now, how to know that is when you look at somebody that look like you, are you afraid? You don't need to be afraid, not at all. You cannot say to yourself, you cannot maybe look at yourself and say, the only place you can find freedom is by running to other people that doesn't look like you. By doing this, you are maybe trying to look for a way to justify that the people that look like you are evil. Then other people that do not look like you are good. Or maybe you are saying those that have died that look like you are evil. You are alive, you are good. Because your children, when you die, you also become evil to them. You know, because it's life is a cycle. We all move in a cycle. So there is no need. We want to break that cycle of course, where we are looking at our history as evil, looking at our land as evil, but we at our top of the land as good. It is not true. Something is wrong there. Anyway, for those of you that are in the audience, you can join us in the room if you have something to share with us, because we really believe in listening to you and also learning from you. That is why we are here. Now, I don't know if Dorothea, you want to say anything about the question that I was asking before, or maybe that is a reflection from what Gloria have shared. Is there anything you want to say about that? Then I have another question, of course, for her.
I don't have anything specifically to say. I really appreciate this discussion platform, and I look forward to hopefully receiving other notifications for your discussions. And I'm learning a lot, and from a different perspective than I have heard in the past.
All right, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I'm honored. All right, it's like yeah, please go.
Yes, now I was just saying likewise. So it took my mother 24 hours to die. And it was incomprehensible for me how somebody who was not sick dies. And at that time, I used to go to church religiously. I remember one night before going to bed, I was just aching with pain. And I said to my mother, I don't know where you are, but I want you to come and get me because I want to be with you. And that evening, that night when I went to sleep, my mother did show up. And she cradled me throughout the night underneath a willow tree. And I felt love like I have never felt before. And in the morning, she said to me, it's morning now, go back and go back. And I could feel my body coming back to me and waking up and finding that it's morning. I got dressed up and went to church, and I really enjoyed the singing. After the singing and praising, the reverend came up to stage and he said, whoever communicates with people who are dead or has dreams of people who have passed on, you are being used by the devil. I remember standing up and leaving and saying, it hasn't even been a week since we buried my mother. I have known this woman for 30 years. When did she suddenly become the devil? And I thought, I want to learn from institutions or from people that have a more broader and holistic understanding of what life and death is all about, because this is very myopic. So for me, it was my journey to really understanding, like you're saying, how can somebody who looks like you be evil? And for me, that was the beginning of my
Thank you for that. That is empowering. That is empowering. Knowledge is power. And when we know who we are, I want to go back to what Gloria was saying before. We know who we are. We work for, and we really need that knowledge of ourselves. See, Michael S. would say, who told you to hate yourself? Told you to hate your language? I think it's a time we start making sure that we start sounding that enough for our ear to understand the game we are in. Because somebody has told us to hate ourselves. That is why, like Gloria was saying before, somebody look at sculpture, African sculpture, the person is crippled with fear, want to run away. But this person, if he's brought to an image that was designed by Michelangelo, I'm talking of Jesus now, the white Jesus, he's not afraid. Why? Because of the story that he had been told. Somebody have told him or her, because Gloria didn't say whether the person was a man or a woman, that your ancestor, your lineage, people that look like you are evil. But you see, you have been clean, so you are good. It's a lie. It's a trick. Anyway, Gloria, I have another question. In what way does ancestral healing help individuals of African descent reconnect with their cultural heritage and reclaim their identity? I think that is going to be important for us today. Please help us.
Thank you, Obehi. You are slamming me with some heavy-duty questions here. But I welcome them.
Please forgive me. I'm trying to do my job.
You're doing it very well, brother. I just want to say also that the answers I'm giving are very short, because a lot of these questions, like I said, on their own, we can talk about for the whole 2 hours. But I just have to give as much as I can within the time we have. And of course, to say, if you want to talk about it some more or to explore some more of it, do get in touch with me. My address is Gloria, Ggunbadejo.com, and we can have a conversation further. So, ancestral healing provides a way for individuals of African descent in particular to reconnect with their historical roots, cultural identity, and reclaim their identities. This can be done by recognizing ancestral trauma. Many people of African descent have experienced trauma due to colonization, slavery, and other historical harm. Sadly, we see how this is showing up in our brothers and sisters' lives. We can't deny it. How they negotiate their way in our communities, what we are seeing on social media, how they present. Now, whether this is through internalized racism, pretty much like my brother Obehi was saying, denying or resisting their traditions and culture under the guise of religious fervor, it could be a number of things. But for me and what I have seen, all roads lead back to colonialism. Ancestral healing can help people recognize these traumas and connect with their ancestors to work towards healing and understanding. This is not a practice that puts someone other than yourself and your ancestors in the driving seat. You will have to do the work to learn about your history, your people, then cultivate a relationship with them. Once you set your intentions, this is a very intentional way of working. You set your intentions, your commitment to the work, and you believe, and your belief that there is something in this work, something that you are a part of, something that you innately need to reconnect with. And this may show up, even though you may not have, what they call it, add the dots, put the dots together. It may be showing up in your life in different ways. You just haven't made the connection. But to thine own self be true. You will know. You will know. He who feels it knows it. Is that how the saying goes? Yeah, I think it's something like that. Or he who knows it feels it, one or the other. Once you set your intentions, your commitment to the work, your ancestors will step in. Going back to understanding and appreciating and placing emphasis on community in particular, as our people used to do, rather than the individual, as we in the West have been taught to do, and literally is killing us. It all starts with intention, a mindset, a willingness to think differently. As I found out, I didn't have to make a great leap, like I said before, because it is who I am. So the reconnection was quick, smooth, joyful. Yes, it was painful because I had to acknowledge certain things. And because I had lived with so much fear and pain from my loss, the idea of thinking about them again felt painful, but it was very short-lived, because what then that turned into was, I have these people, like Maya Angelou says, I walk with these people with me wherever I go, taking them with me. When I was training to be an ancestral practitioner, I had people say to me that when we were doing exchanges, as they call it, and doing the work, they said, we can feel your people. Every time you enter into the Zoom call, your people, the energy, you come with them. And I used to look around and say to myself, are they showing up that I can't see? Do people see something? But that it was coming through me, because I felt them. I felt I was a part of them, and they were a part of me. I was not afraid of them. So this is, like I said, was a light was switched on for me, and it continues. I feel validated. I feel as if there is this wisdom that comes through me from my ancestors. It's interesting. My sister was saying when she lost her mother, because I smiled when she said that, because, like I said, I was the only daughter, the last one. So my mother, and they used to call me my mother's mini me, because she adored me so much. And so when she died, I felt as if a part of me was dead too. And all the things that I was going to miss out on. So I never saw her. I never felt her, nothing. If anything, I was running away from anything that would remind me of any of these deaths. And it's taken literally 30 years when I've stepped into this work. Even when I became a minister, I had no sense of her. But when I stepped into this work, literally the night I started training to do this work, she appeared to me, and I welcomed her. And I said to myself, she appeared to me at a time when I was able to see her without fear. Because if I had seen earlier, I would have freaked out if I had seen her years before. But I understood her presence was also giving me validation of what I was doing. It felt like, okay, it's time. It's time for me to do this work that is going to heal. I have daughters myself. It's healing through our lineage. All the health issues that obviously have come down through the lineage. And so I have to be aware of it, mindful of it, and conscious of all the things that I teach my daughters as to how to live well. And also for them who don't have their grandparents here in life, but for them to also know that the blood of those wonderful ancestors, healthy, vibrant, healed ancestors, flows through their body. And I've stressed, I keep stressing, I hope you noticed that I say vibrant, healed ancestors, because just as they're unhealed people on earth, they're unhealed ancestors too. But that's for another conversation.
I appreciate that. Now, I would like you to say about the how. I think that is important because not many of us actually understand the integrity of how this really work. And of course, that is why you're a coach in that to help people who want to learn how to undergo this journey, who want to learn how to navigate this road, self-discovery, if you want to put it like that. So, how does ancestral healing address the historical trauma experience by, say, people of African descent? What would you like to share about that?
Another big question, Obehi. Well, the first step towards healing and reconciliation is to acknowledge the generational trauma and its impact on individuals and the collective. We have to acknowledge that, and we have to be able to see how it shows up in our lives in ways that is maybe uncomfortable to a lot of us, because having to acknowledge that we have drunk from the Kool-Aid well, to use an American expression, and we've believed everything that we've been told, that is saying we have to question some of our behavior. And like I tell people, I'm not going to now denounce my Christianity. I was raised in it, but the way I was raised, and I thank my parents for that gratitude. Like I said, there was no dogma. It was teaching us right from wrong, teaching us, the ways to be in the world. And for me, that is what I teach my children. So I want to be clear that how you acknowledge that within yourself is up to you. But as an individual and as a collective, it's time for us to make that acknowledgement, and acknowledge the suffering caused by slavery, segregation, ongoing systematic oppression, because it hasn't stopped, racism, and importantly, recognize and understand that if it continues, how it continues to affect the African diaspora, because it's so far reaching and it's affecting our children. And it will continue. The cycle will continue until we break it. We break it individually and collectively. Connecting with the ancestors can help individuals identify inherited trauma and transcend it. This can be done through rituals, ceremonies. Like I said, again, I know for a lot of people, because it used to happen to me, when you hear rituals, immediately, even now as I say it, I still have that trigger. What does ritual mean? Is something dark and horrible, and but in the churches, rituals, there are rituals every day in the church. And what are rituals? Like I said, burning candles, drinking wine, breaking bread, all of these are rituals. So it's how we think of words, and the perception and what meaning has been put onto those words. When you go to all these the church and they do all these things, you ask them, these are the rituals that they, the pastor, the Catholic Church, the gown they wear, all those things that they do, they're all rituals. So going back to rituals and ceremonies like meditation, prayer, or setting up what I would call an ancestral altar. Again, don't freak out when you hear it. I say that because I know those are the words that used to trigger me also. And the altar can be simply just a place, a clean space that is dedicated to all the things that you would like to associate with your ancestors. Could be pictures, flowers, items of jewelry. And again, you're not worshiping it, because I know immediately the mind may go, oh, am I worshiping this? No, you're just making an intentional, clean space where when you go to this space, your thoughts and memories are about your loved ones and asking for their input in your life. Because if there's a space that you've created, and I know lots of Christians have spaces that they create for images of Christ and things. So similarly, if you can do that, what possibly could be wrong in creating a space for your ancestors? But just make that make sense to me, because I really have never been able to understand that. And so these are the things, again, like I said, it has to be an intentional thing, giving you a deeper sense of belonging and a greater connection to these people, your wonderful ancestors who have gone before you and done so much on your behalf and will continue to do on your behalf if you honor them. Also, honoring your ancestors, and individuals can recognize their contributions, their strengths, and their resilience, which can provide hope and empower them to confront the challenges of their lives. When you honor the wonderful people who have gone before you, the contributions that and their strengths, it somehow you also, it's like claiming it. Because if your ancestors, and when people talk about their great aunt who was like the salt of the earth, the warrior, I come from ancestors who are warriors. My maiden name is Ggunbadejo, which is the god of iron. I married an Ggunbadejo, so I have plenty of that stuff in me, and going through my children, I'm so proud of it. And like I say, it guides everything I do. Because when I think of myself, I say to myself, is this what somebody who comes from this lineage, is this how I would respond to something? Things that used to trigger me very easily before, now I look at it, I say, no, I don't have time to work with somebody on a low vibration. Because what I'm seeing here is low vibrational stuff. I'm on another level, and it's not about being superior. It's just that I say I'm purposefully walking in the world, and I'm looking to attract people who are on that vibration too, so we can spread it out. If I go down to somebody who's running on, there's a race to the bottom now. Everybody's trying to work on some low level stuff. If I go down that way, that's what we're going to be spreading out. I'm not about that, and my people will have a word or two to say to me if I do that. Education and learning about African history, especially Black history in the diaspora, can give an individual a sense of agency and help them understand how the present is connected to the past. I hear people say, why do you have to go to the past, to move to the future? That already answers itself. If you don't know where you're coming from, okay, just put the dots to the rest of that. So community healing, Ubuntu. We're all here in order to help each other. And the more we have all this social media where we can reach each other in an instant, the more we're disconnected. So we're not doing something right. That's not the thing for us to do. Yes, all these things, there's a part to play in our lives, but this is something very different. That's why I keep saying it's a very intentional way of thinking, of being. Healing is not only an individual process. Community healing practices such as drumming circles, healing circles, support groups, what we're doing now, which again, by the way, is ministry. Because I know people who say ministry, you have to be in church. No, you can do ministry in different ways. We're doing ministry here right now. We're uplifting one another. We're trying to our well-being. We're working towards something greater and higher, which we put out into the world, into community. So we can do it in different ways. Just having a conversation with someone about what we've talked about now, that is spreading the word. It's like a domino effect, because people are ready. People want something different. So this is part of how we get this message further across to others. Sharing our experiences, cultivating self-care. Healing can be a painful process requiring self-compassion, patience, and resilience. All those words, there's something about those words that I feel like in the times that we're living in, there's so little compassion. People are less resilient than they've ever been. They're not looking after themselves like they should. So these are the patterns that we see. And all these things, ancestral healing can begin to give you the tools you need to make these things happen in your life. Practicing self-care is so important. Okay, Obehi, let me stop. I feel like I'm talking nonstop.
No. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Gloria. I appreciate the time. I appreciate the sharing. And of course, for those that are listening, like Gloria have already said, she's an ancestral healing coach. Why not connect with her and try to, if you have any question, if you want to go deeper into what we have discussed here, she's the right person to help you out. Of course, she already told you how to reach her. She's also available on LinkedIn. So I really appreciate the sharing here. I've learned a lot from what you have shared with me, what you have shared here, and I believe other people that are listening to us also have learned a lot from your sharing. So thank you so very much for that. I just want to remind us that this whole conversation is coming from a 5-part book series that I've written. It's available on Amazon. It's titled Storytelling Series for small businesses and content creators. Of course, it teaches you how to leverage the power of storytelling in your business. And of course, why not build your influence? If you are somebody who wants to use your story. And of course, I don't know any reason why you shouldn't use storytelling. What you are doing, looking at the power that is buried in the telling of story, helping you to elicit emotion in people, helping you to connect to people at an emotional level. So if you are such an individual who is interested in learning about the power of story, why not? The book is available. You can pick any one of them out on Amazon and read it. And of course, I will be interested in learning what you feel about the story.
Obehi, I just wanted to add a few extra things to what I was just saying a minute ago. I sort of cut myself short, but there are a few things just to add on to that, particularly around to cultivate self-expression. Things like dance, poetry, music, art. These are powerful ways for individuals to express their emotions and ways that come naturally to us. I do it every day. I play music and I just dance. And there's something about moving your body. It doesn't have to be in a club. That's a different kind of dance. Just it awakens our ancestors, because that's what they did. They communicated through dance, how we wear our hair. All these things are where our ancestors have communicated. These art forms can provide healing and a sense of belonging. Addressing historical racial trauma affecting the African diaspora requires awareness, courage, sensitivity, and an openness to creative ways of healing. Ancestral healing promotes holistic healing. It leads to a greater sense of peace and freedom, and can facilitate the process of reconciliation, enabling individuals and communities to move forward with hope for a better future for us and for our next generation and their generation. We have to make a difference, brothers and sisters. This is the time that's upon us now. If you're interested in anything I've said, I have a signature offer that, I work with people 12 weeks and more to set up a bespoke program for you. And that will be based on deep assessment I make with you in terms of what your needs are, where you are, history that you know about your people, what you don't know, what you might be able to find out. Some of us are losing. I wish I knew this work before lots of my people had gone. There's lots of information I could have got from them. But it's interesting now that I'm craving it, things that my mother said to me when I was 16, because she had seen that I was going to do this work. I now remember chunks of conversations she was having with me because she did this work. I just didn't understand it. By day, she was a headmistress and teacher in school, then a psychologist. Then she had businesses. Then in the evening, she was a hostess, hostessing fantastic dinner, and then at night, she was doing this work because I was there with her. I just didn't know that's the work she was doing. So I could never get away from it. I was bound to do this work. But that's just to say, thinking about your own history, your family, talking to family members, getting as much information. When you're ready, to do that exploration. The road will open. You will, the things you need to find out you'll be given the wisdom to find those things out when you're ready. So like I said, if anything that I've spoken about today has just opened a little bit of curiosity for you, do get in touch and let's see if this work is for you. Over to you, Obehi.
Thank you so much for that. That is so vital. It's so important. If people understand the importance of connecting to their root, I want to repeat again, don't ever allow anyone to take the sand under your feet, but that is your to the earth. You are a product of where you are, what you are. So make sure your feet are on the ground. No one must stand between you and the ground. Anyway, I don't want to prolong that. So is there any other thing you would like to say to conclude the conversation? Because we appreciate what you have shared with us.
I feel I've spoken a lot, and I feel as if the energy that I've received from the listeners lets me know that they have also listened deeply. So I'm satisfied. I'm content that we have made connection today, and however that shows up in your life, I bless you. And I look forward to hearing from maybe some of you. But if not, thank you so much for coming on and staying on. Bless you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. I thank you to all of you that have listened to the conversation until now. And thank also to who have come in the room to share with us. We appreciate you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe so you never miss any of our future episodes. Rate and review Obehi Podcast and share with your friends who might need it. Thank you so much for listening, and talk to you in the next episode.